Hey guys, this is Nick with another video tutorial. Today we're going to take a look at how I edit my night sky shots and how I edit the Milky Way and stuff. So let's jump over to the computer. Okay, so here we are in Lightroom as always, and here I have this shot. It was taken, this is Mount Hood in the background. This is at Lost Lake in Oregon, and obviously it needs some editing. This is how it looks straight out of camera. So the first thing I'm going to do is fix my white balance. For a lot of my night shots, I like to be at like, I don't know, 3800 or so. We'll go 3850. Looks fairly neutral. You don't want to go too blue because you want to maintain some of the orangeness in the Milky Way. But you don't want to be too warm because all the light pollution is going to be yucky. Okay, so this is what it looks like. It looks fairly neutral. Maybe I'll up this to 16 or 17. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So the first thing that I do is I add a ton of contrast in the highlights. And the way that I do that is I take my highlight slider and I move it all the way down. And then I drop the exposure quite a bit. And then I grab the white slider and I bring it up. And that's going to add so much more contrast in the sky. It really makes the stars pop. You can do it more extreme than this. You can do it less than this. It's totally a taste thing. But this is how I do it. Okay, so this is where we're at right now. One of the things that I'm going to do is take my adjustment brush, come over here and bump the noise slider all the way up. And basically what I'm going to do is try to take out all the noise out of the shadows and the water. The stuff that I don't really care about the detail anyway. I'm just going to paint noise reduction in, and essentially it's going to get rid of the detail as well. And I kind of like the effect that it has on the water. Like if I turn this off, watch the water when I click it off, see how the stars are more defined, but when I click it on, it just looks a little bit softer and wetter, in my opinion. If I can make water look wetter, I go for it. Okay, so now I'm going to adjust my black slider. I want to make sure that these silhouettes are completely black. So I'm going to grab my slider, hold down the Alt key, and as I move it this way, it's going to show me what is absolute black. And something in there looks good to me. Okay, so I'm going to up the exposure a bit. Now the next thing I want to do is add some contrast into the Milky Way and try to bring it out a little bit. There's lots of different ways you can do this. You can find tutorials on other channels on how to do that. The way I like to do it, it's kind of cheating, but I like to just dodge and burn it. So I'm going to take a brush, I'm going to bring down my shadows, I'm going to turn my flow down fairly low because I want it to be something that slowly builds up. And then with this brush, since I'm bringing down my shadows, I'm just going to paint it in to the spots in the Milky Way that need to be dark. So I'm going to start up here. And you can see I'm just working a little bit at a time. And just kind of going through the darkest part of the Milky Way. Because the more contrast that Milky Way has, the better it's going to look. Obviously, this was a kind of a cloudy night. I only got a few shots off before the clouds came and obscured it altogether. But adding this contrast will help dramatically define the Milky Way. And I'm just painting on the areas that are already dark. That way I'm staying fairly true to how it looks. So something like that. So if I turn it off, the change was subtle, but it helps. Now I'm going to select a new brush and I'm just going to bump up the contrast. I'm just going to paint it over the Milky Way. I'm going to turn my flow up so I can actually see what I'm doing here. And this isn't your typical Milky Way shot because it can't see the whole thing. Down here is kind of the meat of it. It's the best part, and it's kind of obscured. So this isn't the best Milky Way shot, but I kind of feel like it's a cool shot even though you can't see it just because you got Mount Hood in the background. Now I'm going to take another slider. I'm going to increase the highlights and just paint a little bit on the mountain. That way kind of jumps out and you can tell what the subject is of this particular shot. Another thing I might do is just bump up the clarity and contrast and paint it over the sky. Something like that. And I think I want to warm it up just a little bit. Take it up to there. Something like that. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my detail slider. I'm going to mask out some of the sharpening with this masking slider. I'm going to hold down my Alt key, move it to the right, and it masks out the parts of the image that I don't want to be sharpened anyway. So it's not attempting to sharpen all the darks, all the black parts of the image. Turn my radius down, turn my sharpening up a bit, and then I'm going to add just the tiniest bit of noise reduction. I shot this, my settings on this shot were ISO 6400, 17 millimeters f2.8 for 25 seconds. So it's fairly noisy, but if you turn your noise reduction up too much, it does this to your image. And it's kind of a cool look, but it's kind of poopy too, so it's a taste thing. I add just a little bit of noise reduction. It helps me sleep at night, but it doesn't really do much. So that's what I do. And yeah, I tend to, in my night shots, I don't enable the profile correction, which would get rid of the vignetting. Because if you do that, it increases all kinds of noise in the corners. It basically just brightens up the corners and makes it super noisy. So I leave that on, and I might brighten this image just a little bit more. I want it to have some zing. Whoa, not that much zing. Something like that. Okay, so that's going to be my final image, I think. So again, we went from this to that. I think that's a pretty cool image. So yeah, so we went from this to this, and I'm pretty happy with that shot. So hopefully this has been useful for you. If you want to check out more of my tutorials or my other work, you can head over to nickpagephotography.com. You can email me at nickpagephotography@gmail.com, and click subscribe, check out my other videos, and we'll see you next time. All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.